I think the onus and the fault is on the facility for doing something like that, taking advantage of very vulnerable situations.
How long does a nursing home case typically take, and what are the phases the family should expect?
Yeah, so every case is going to be a little bit different of how long it actually takes. I try to collect the medical records as quickly as I can, review them as quickly as I can. I'm a little beholden to third-party providers, obviously, in getting those records. But if we're talking about strictly litigation, let's say a case has to go into litigation, lawsuit is filed, you're probably looking at anywhere between a year and a half and 2 years, I would say, before you're actually getting your day in court. Sometimes it's more if there's motion practice, like a lot of these facilities have arbitration agreements within their admission paperwork. And if I read over an arbitration agreement and I think that it is invalid or unconscionable, that's something that has to be fought on the front end.
Right. So if you have an arbitration, are they trying to go with binding arbitration where they're locking you into? Is that the typical tactic?
Yes, so in these arbitration agreements that I've seen so far in the admission paperwork, they are buried in 40 plus pages of admission paperwork. They are limiting residents and their loved ones' rights to a trial by jury, and they're trying to get the resident or the healthcare power of attorney or durable power of attorney to agree to a binding arbitration, where that means you don't file a lawsuit, so it's not public record. You don't get in front of a jury, so there's not a jury of everyone's peers deciding and hearing these cases. And it's really a disservice to the residents too, because I mean, you've been through it when you have to make the difficult decision to put your loved one in a facility. Sometimes it's because they just had surgery in a hospital and you have no choice. And sometimes there's only one or two facilities that have beds, so you really don't have a lot of options and your emotions are high. And then it's like, here's 60 pages and just sign here, sign here, sign here. And that's what happens often.
So is that legal to just say, okay, we're you arbitration, that's it?
If yes and no. So yes, it's legal in the sense that if the parties agree and they sign and the agreement itself is valid and fair to both parties, technically yes. I mean, if you've ever bought or leased a car, you entered into an arbitration agreement.
So do they limit the amount you're going to cover in those arbitration agreements, or are they just like you have to do binding arbitration?
I've seen both. I've seen some of them that do not limit it. They limit it to the state, of course, so it'd be limited to the Wisconsin caps. And then I have seen where facilities limit it even further. And of course, that's from my perspective, immediate grounds to file a response motion that the agreement is invalid and unconscionable.
So what if there's something egregious that happened? You've signed this thing, or I don't know why every nursing home would just say we're going to, as our boilerplate is always going to be, to have this binding arbitration. What percentage of nursing homes do that?
It's becoming much more common practice now, actually, to include it in admission paperwork. So I see it a lot. One of the things about the arbitration agreements is they cannot make it a requirement of the person's admission. So some of the things they have to have is that type of language, and then like an opt-in and opt-out checkbox or button. What I often see though is these are like very pressure situations. The families are given a huge stack of paper. I've even had so far of a family member just getting a tablet and just being like, okay, I just need your initials here, here, and here. and the family member just in the moment didn't ask, well, what am I signing?
Sure.
And they're going through something, so they didn't think to ask that. And I think the onus and the fault is on the facility for doing something like that, taking advantage of very vulnerable situations.